Good morning. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the December 30th, 2021 meeting for the Board of County Commissioners for Shawnee County. My name is Kevin Cook. I serve as the chair, also representing District 2. Joining me this morning is Commissioner Bill Rippon, representing District 1. Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioner Aaron Mays, representing District 3. Good morning.
Morning.
Madam Clerk, our first item.
First item is item 3, consent agenda.
We have several items on the consent agenda. Are there any questions or is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business, A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have a rather large voucher report totaling $2,054,260.84. Several items I want to note on that. Under District Court to INFACT for $10,719 is for digital display controllers and cables. Under Detention Facility to Meridian Roofing for $78,852 for roof replacement on the Juvenile Detention Center and the Adult Detention Center, East Addition. Under Equipment Fund to Sound Products for $29,318 is to replace 10 control door switches at the DOC. Under General Expense to Mail Services LLC for $45,252.05 is for tax statements. Under Infrastructure, City of Topeka for $142,059.50 is for the relocation of the water line at 45th and Barrington Road. And then also on that same project to Ham Incorporated for $461,891.12. It's final payment on that project as well. Under Information Technology for CDW Government for $60,375. It's for the purchase of personal computers for our technology refresh. And under Special Law Enforcement Fund to Lexipol for $24,179.40. It's for law enforcement manuals and training bulletins. I don't have any questions about any of this. If you don't, then I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A3, consider approval of resolution number 2021-129, authorizing a 2022 cereal malt beverage license to Croco Store LLC, doing business as Gas Strip, located at 550 Southeast Croco Road, Topeka, Kansas. And this is the last of our cereal malt beverage licenses for the year. It has, Councilor's Office has reviewed, has been reviewed by KBI, and the township had been notified, and we didn't receive any negative response from any of them, so everything is okay. So we just request that you approve the resolution so we can get the license for them.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, Facilities Management, number 1, request authorization to prepare and submit requests for qualifications for design build services for 707 Southeast Quincy and various spaces within the Shawnee County Courthouse. Project 2021-9, 2021-11, 2021-15, 2021-21, and 2021-38.
Good morning. Before we begin, if I could interject this, Jim Cross, Shawnee County Councilor. We'll need to address this item first as a public hearing, open a public hearing, or hear from proponents, opponents to the measure, and then vote whether to approve it. Thank you.
At this time, I would move to open public hearing.
Second.
Motion to open public hearing by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that passes 3-0. Now that we have opened the public hearing, I'll turn the floor over first to our facility manager, Nelda Henning.
Good morning. Per KSA 19216D, the board may approve projects or programs for which they can use the alternative project delivery procurement process if they feel is appropriate. In making such a determination, the board may consider the following factors. 1, the likelihood that the alternative project delivery method of procurement selection will serve the public interest by providing substantial savings of time, money over the traditional design bid build process. 2, the ability to overlap design and construction phases is required to meet the needs of the end user. 3, the use of the accelerated schedule is required to make repairs resulting from an emergency situation. 4, the project presents significant phasing or technical complexities, or both, requiring the use of an integrated team of designers and contractors to resolve the project challenges during the design or pre-construction phase. Or 5, the use of the alternative project delivery method will not encourage favoritism in awarding the public contract of substantial diminished competition for the public contract. We have met the 15-day notice for the public hearing as of today. We believe this request meets 4 out of the 5 determining factors, and we request the Board of County Commissioners to approve the proceeding with the design build procurement process.
Any questions for Nelda? All right. Are there any persons wishing to speak in favor of the request to have a design build? Seeing none, are there any opponent or proponents against the design build request? Seeing none, pleasure of the commission.
I would move that we close the hearing and approve the authorization.
Motion made to close the public hearing and adopt the request for design build.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed, reflected it passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item B2, consider approval of request to transfer $30,000 from the Shawnee County Budget Contingency Fund to a project fund to continue the paint refresh throughout the courthouse.
Nelda Henning, Director of Facilities Management. I'm here to answer any questions you might have on this request.
Questions? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed, reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B3, consider approval of request to transfer $40,000 from the Shawnee County Budget Contingency Fund to a project fund for the interior cab finish upgrades, replacement of the 3 courthouse elevators.
Once again, Nelda Henning, Director of Facilities Management. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. This request is a continuation of the fact the elevators' mechanical systems were upgraded earlier this year, and we would like to finish it off by upgrading the interior cabs.
Now, any idea of what those interior cab redesigns would look like?
They would be similar to what's there, other than we will go with a little bit more durable finish, similar to the brushed metal that is currently on the doors and frames inside the elevators. That way we won't have any issues with banged up partitions and paint scratches.
Any other questions?
No, well, actually, yes. Would there be any benefit to doing this at the same time as the rest of the courthouse modifications?
I would kind of like to wait and hold off on at least one of the elevators so that the contractors will only beat up one versus 3 of them, but to go ahead and get 2 of them completed before we really get underway, so that the public still has an elevator that works and is at least clean.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Motion?
I'd move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed, reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item C, Health Department, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C494-2021 with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment to provide $3,000 to help control tuberculosis in Shawnee County for the contract period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022.
Good morning, Commissioners. Teresa Fisher, Director with the Health Department. As the clerk read, this is an annual contract that we have through Kansas Department of Health and Environment for our tuberculosis control grant. I do want to note that, yes, this contract did start on July 1st. We just had to wait on KDHE to be able to have time to facilitate these grants amongst their COVID response efforts. So that is why there is a delay on this. The $3,000, I just want to go over a couple of things of what this helps provide money for. So direct observed therapy, so when we have patients that actually need to have their therapy observed each day, labs and x-rays for qualifying patients, meaning those who are uninsured and otherwise unable to pay for services, and then it also helps pay for initial nurse visits and evaluations for some of those same qualifying patients that are uninsured. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from Ms. Fisher?
Yeah. About how many tuberculosis cases do we get a year?
Yeah, well, I'm not the expert here today, but the expert gave me some information. So her latest stats say that here in Kansas, there's about 2 cases per 100,000 people. So our rate, she says, is on track with this. We typically have about 2 to 3 cases of TB per year. So,
Any other questions? Motion?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item C2, consider authorization and execution of contract C498-2021 with Vlad Dimitriou for professional medical and healthcare services for patients at the Health Department with active tuberculosis and/or tuberculosis infection, and to serve as backup for the local health officer from January 1, 2022 through December 31st, 2022 at an annual estimated cost of $3,750.
good morning, Commissioners. Again, Teresa Fisher, Director of the Health Department. So Dr. Dimitriou is our contract physician that does help provide care for our tuberculosis patients. So he reviews the patients with the nurses. They usually do a monthly case meeting with those. He can provide specific orders as needed. And then also he is additionally serving as a backup for Dr. Locke in her absence. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Our next item.
Item D, Court Administration, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C485-2021 with court-appointed special advocates, CASA, to provide services for the calendar year 2022 to the residents of Shawnee County at a total cost of $54,900 that is allocated through the court administration budget and recognizing an existing 3-year agreement 2021 through 2023 between CASA of Shawnee County, Inc. and the 3rd Judicial District regarding specific programs.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Welch, Court Administrator, 3rd Judicial District. This is the same similar agreement we've entered into with CASA for a number of years. Since 2015, actually, we've maintained the same contract rate. This is simply a pass-through through the district court budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Motion?
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays,
Second.
second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D2, consider approval of request to set aside up to $200,000 from the remaining 2021 annual budget to a special fund to be used for potential overages in courtroom renovation projects to allow for full ADA bench accessibility and possible installation of a restroom between rooms 300 and 304.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Welch, Court Administrator, 3rd Judicial District. In short, I'm going to revise this request to request approval to transfer an amount up to $200,000 into a special project fund that would allow for a wheelchair lift in one of our courtrooms and associated ADA accommodations, such as electric doors, revision of restroom in chambers to make them handicap accessible. I had originally requested a $35,000 funding amount through ARPA, which was through the Office of Judicial Administration, Kansas Judicial Branch. They're not making any allocations for funding until after the first of the year. In fact, a communication I received yesterday said it may be mid-22 before funding allocations are made through the state. So with that $35,000 request, it would actually If those funds were utilized, it could be a reimbursement to Shawnee County. Any funds not utilized for this project would be returned to county general funds. The amount is anticipated to be much less than $200,000. I would expect it to be less than $50,000, but what we've realized is that not only do we not have a bench accessible, we have one bench that's accessible to someone in a wheelchair, which is Division 15, one of the basement courtrooms. We don't have a handicap accessible restroom in all of our divisions. We have one in room 410 that could be handicap accessible with a relocation of a door. So we don't know, what expenses may be entailed. We do have 2 courtrooms that are designed to accept a wheelchair lift, but there is no wheelchair lift in place. So this is this funding request is for the purchase of a wheelchair lift and any associated accommodation needs.
Questions regarding the request to establish a project fund up to $200,000?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item E, Public Works number 1, consider approval of request for an estimated project budget of $580,000 for the rehabilitation of a portion of Sherwood Sanitary Sewer Treatment System's collection system with funding from the KDHE revolving loan estimated at $690,000 with loan repayments 100% user fee supported.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. I'm here before you asking approval of a project budget. This is the second of our KDHE loan projects. It's a collection, rehabilitation, repair project that takes place from approximately the intersection of Southwest 37th Street and Nottingham Road, and it winds north to the treatment plant. Most of the work will take place underground with no surface disturbance. There will be a number of point repairs. By point repairs, we mean there'll be an actual excavation, and the repairs will take place in open air, but most of the work, the vast majority of the work will take place using a cure-in-place technology where we line the existing pipe. And with that, I look forward to your questions.
Any questions for Kurt regarding this? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item F, Human Resources, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C493-2021 with the City of Topeka for use of their fitness center, which includes a minimum quarterly fee of $250 for up to 25 employees.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Lewis with Human Resources. This is our 4th year partnering with the City of Topeka for their fitness center. Our last contract was for $275 for the quarter. This one is for $250. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Commissioner Reyes.
Yeah, so do we know how many county employees utilize?
Right now, we have 15 people using the facility.
Okay.
Okay.
And do we charge them on their paychecks or?
We do.
Questions?
No.
All right.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item F2, acknowledge receipt of the 2022 benefit cost unemployment rate notice from the Kansas Department of Labor.
Good morning, Angela Lewis again with Human Resources. As the clerk mentioned, the cost is 0.11% for 2022, or it was for 2021. It was 0.11%. For 2022, it'll be 0.29%, which is a 0.18% increase for our unemployment tax. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
And Angela, that is due to just changes of the employment status of Shawnee County employees?
Yes, and it's calculated over a 3-year period.
Commissioner Mays?
So, yeah, it's a 0.18 increase, but it's like 175% approximately. I'm doing that in my head, but so I might be wrong, but it's a significant increase.
It is.
Have we had that amount of unemployment claims
We have.
that have made it that much higher?
I see Betty coming to the podium, so I'll let her come in.
Betty Griner, Director of Administrative Services. It is based on the claims. They do take the amount of the claims that we've had over a certain period of time. There is a multiplier to that for general use or whatever, through the statutes. There is a multiplier to that, but it is based on our claims. This is unusual. In fact, since I've been here, the unemployment rate has actually gone down in years past. Most of the time, it's pretty steady. I did calculate this. This is about an additional $90,000 of cost to the county.
Do we know if they counted any of the fraudulent claims in this? Because I know we had,
All of the
it seems
fraudulent
like we
claims
had a lot of them.
were handled by the county counselor's office, and I don't believe that we had any that those were included in this.
Okay. The other thing on here is in this email or the letter that we received, it looks like it says we have 15 days to appeal. But it looks like the letter was received in July. So did we consider any appeal?
We did not consider an appeal based on the fact that the people that were listed are all people who legitimately had claims.
Okay.
I'm sorry, let me add one more thing. The period of time they were looking at was through March of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So that was before the fraudulent claims really started happening too. So the claims that they're looking at is pre-COVID.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Not for me.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge receipt.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item F3, presentation of Evergreen compensation study and recommendations for implementation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Lewis with Human Resources. I'd like to introduce Mark Holcomb, who is our Evergreen Solutions consultant. He's going to present the wage study results. After Mark's presentation, the Wage Committee has recommendations for the Commission to consider. Mark, are you with us?
I am. Are you able to see this presentation now?
We are. You can go right ahead. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well,
Well, as Angela said, my name is Mark Holcomb, and I led the compensation study on the Evergreen Solutions side of things. So I'm going to go ahead and run through a presentation that's going to talk about the study goals that we had at the beginning of the project, the different project phases that we underwent throughout the course of the engagement, the market results that we saw, and then the recommendations at the end, and then I'll turn it back over to Angela and the compensation committee to present their recommendations from there. So the study goals that we had at the beginning of the engagement were really twofold. The two high-level goals that we had. Number one was to review your current system to ensure that internal equity was as high as it could be at the end of the engagement. And number two was look at peer organizations to ensure that we had a high level of external equity. So when I use those two terms, internal equity and external equity, internal equity relates to how positions compare to one another in terms of the compensation system inside Shawnee.
So if you look at the way a certain position is compensated in one department, if you have an employee doing the exact same thing in another department, you would want to ensure they have a similar range of compensation available to them. Similarly, if you look at a position in a department and then maybe that position's supervisor, you might say it makes sense for the supervisor to have a higher level of compensation given that they have a higher level of responsibility, complexity, et cetera. So that's the internal equity side of things. External equity, again, is the same thing, except comparing to other organizations, instead of two different positions inside Shawnee County. So if you look at somebody performing a certain set of tasks or duties, and you said, how much would that individual make, or how much would that position be compensated at another organization? Those are the things that we tried to keep in mind throughout the course of the study with the recommendations that we brought to the county that they were then able to use. We tried to keep in both internal and external equity in mind with all of those recommendations. So it was not as simple as saying the market average is X dollars per hour, and so we go with that exact amount. We would want to make sure there was no internal compression or inversion of positions internally as well with all of our recommendations. So with the project at a high level, we did have phase one, which was the outreach. So that was a project kickoff where we really got to know the county. We collected a lot of data from the Human Resources Department. We had some meetings with the project team on the Shawnee County side of things. And so we also, in that outreach phase, had individual meetings with each department, typically the department head, and sometimes a number two deputy or somebody else would attend, as well as each of the different unions. And so those department head and union meetings were important for us to go through and really try to understand what the concerns were in the different areas across the county. So that was the opportunity for the department heads again and unions to express that they were concerned about compensation in certain levels, if they had certain positions they wanted us to pay careful attention to, if there were any compression or inversion concerns, they were able to bring those up with us at the beginning. The internal analysis in phase two then consisted of us reviewing everything that we collected in phase one, essentially. So the data we collected from HR, the compensation system that you're using now, your pay plans, your structures, as well as any of the indications that were given to us from the departments that said, hey, we need you to follow up in this area or that area. Those are the things that we did in phase two. Phase three didn't start after phase two was completely over, but after we had a good head start on phase two, we really felt like we had a grasp of the system. We actually went out to the market, and I'll cover in just a moment a little bit more detail about the market comparisons we made. But phase three is that compensation study that helped us understand where is Shawnee County currently positioned? How do you compare to the market? Where were the gaps that we found? And where were the positions that, were there some positions that were doing a little bit better overall? Phase four, the solution, is where we came back to the county with recommendations. We have some implementation options that we shared. We did have several different options that we brought forward, and we explained what we see as the pros and cons of each of the options. And we've essentially brought it to the county to make their recommendation from that compensation committee. Reporting then includes the different levels of report that we've provided to the county to this point, including this presentation here. So making sure we're reporting our results, reporting the findings, so the county has a good idea of sort of what we did and what we found. With the market organizations that we looked at, we did have responses from 14 different peers. 8 of those were from within Kansas, and then 6 of those were from surrounding states, where we tried to make comparisons to other counties that had similar service offerings or similar demographics, things of that nature. We did adjust all responses for cost of living. So it's important to note that, as I know, even across the state of Kansas, there's going to be different cost of livings, but especially when you go to another state, you want to make sure we're putting everything in terms of the dollar and spending power that an employee would have within Shawnee County. And so we did adjust for cost of living for all the responses. We looked at 158 different benchmark positions. And so when we say benchmark positions, what that means is we selected enough positions that ensured that we would be able to make comparisons to every position or a related position in the county. So for example, if we come back with market results for Office Assistant 1, we might not have to have Office Assistant 2 as well, because we're able to pair those up together. We understand if one is behind the market, the other can be compared similarly. And so those benchmark positions were representative of each department, each area, each union, and they did allow us to make essentially assignments and relationship positions about the market position for each position in the organization. We did, in addition to looking at these target respondents that did respond and provide data, we also collected some data from secondary sources to basically verify and true up sort of the responses that we got, just to make sure that we had that second level of review. So those secondary sources include compensation data that's collected by other consulting firms that we subscribe to collect that data, and really help us understand, is this data, does it match what others have collected in the state of Kansas and for, Shawnee County. And we did find that verification with those secondary sources as well. So with the market results, then we've got a few different points of comparison that we can show. On the left-hand side of this exhibit, you've got the minimum, midpoint, maximum of the non-cost of living adjusted data. And so that just shows, the dollar for dollar comparison without any adjustment. The county did come in behind the market at all three levels, min, mid, and max. Although you note that the county does get a little bit more competitive as we get closer to the maximum. The county actually had wider ranges, which means you're further behind at the minimum, but doing a little bit better as you get closer to the maximum. When we make the cost of living adjustment, you see it does actually bring the county slightly closer to the market. So about a couple percentage points at the minimum and midpoint, and only a fraction of a percent at the max. Again, that comparison there shows the county is still behind the market overall. So we did find the county to be behind market. This is an average across all benchmark positions. It is important to note that this does not mean every single position came in exactly, let's say 9.1% behind market at the midpoint. That is the average across all positions. So some positions actually came back pretty well against the market and in a pretty fair position overall. Some positions came back significantly lower. So we did have some positions 15, 20, 25% behind the market. And so when we made our adjustments, we did not just recommend a flat across the board increase. We actually tailored those increases to the different areas that required adjustments. So if your position, if a specific classification was further behind the market, we took a look at adjusting those positions more as needed based on the external equity from this, but again, always keeping in mind that internal equity as well. The last thing that I want to point out is on the right-hand side, you see the actual salary comparison. So that looks at the actual dollar amount salaries that employees take home instead of the pay ranges. So instead of looking at the minimum and maximum of the range, we look at where our salaries actually positioned. And it is important to note that Shawnee County is only about 6.5% behind in that comparison. That is closer in line with the maximums. It is better than the county is doing at the minimum and the midpoint. So it does show that the compensation system the county is using currently does a good job of advancing employees through the range. You are doing better versus the market in actual pay than your minimums and maximums would lead you to believe. So that is one key finding that we took forward into the recommendations that allowed us to essentially leverage the strengths that you currently have in your system while still making the adjustments for the market that we felt were important. So with that, the key recommendations that we have, we do have a few high-level recommendations that I want to sort of emphasize one at a time. The first is to maintain the implemented pay structures that the county adopted during your last wage study. As I just mentioned, this sort of ties right in with that market result there. The system that you have in place is doing a good job of advancing employees. However, the issue is the overall structures in general are behind market. So we did recommend maintaining your current structures, although updating the ranges for market. So what that means is the different unions, the different employees who are assigned a certain pay grade, many of them will be able to look and see and understand the exact structure they're on under our recommendations. They're able to say, I have the same grade number, but the grade actually would be adjusted for market. So that's step one, is leverage the strengths from the currently in use system that you have. Number two, though, is to reassign pay grades to positions based on internal equity and the market. So some positions will see larger adjustments than others here. What that means is we did look within the structures that you currently have. So if you look at an employee who, or a classification rather, that's on pay grade 8, For example, in the county's, general employee structures, if that particular position were further behind market than the movement we granted there were positions that would be recommended, for example, to move from grade 8 to grade 9 or to grade 10. And so we did reassign individually every single one of the positions. Some obviously kept their same grade, but some of them were looked at and reviewed, and they actually moved grades based on the market results and internal equity that we found. And so that was a key thing that we did. Again, that this was a targeted recommendations that we had there with the pay scales and the pay grades for individual positions. It was not a simple flat adjustment across the board. Then the third step is, once we have those reassignments, we had to look at how should we be placing employees within the newly recommended pay grades. So with the adjustments there, how do you place employees in? There were a few different options that we looked at. And ultimately what the county determined, and Angela can touch on this in a moment with the compensation committee recommendations, but we did look at an option for maintaining the step progress that employees currently have made. So if you're on step 15, you would stay on step 15, and then in the next year, you would receive a step increase that the county was already looking for. So in potentially July of next year, you would go from step 15 to step 16, for example. So that's the approach that we're looking at recommending. When we move to the implementation cost, essentially here on the next slide, that's the cost that we have built out there for the next step implementation. So importantly, this cost here does include all of the regularly scheduled base salary adjustments that employees would need to have for this next upcoming year. So there's no hidden cost where we implement the study and then they also need to receive a step increase. This would take care of all of the base salary adjustments for this upcoming year. I do mention base salary. Again, any supplemental pays, any benefits, anything of that nature is not included here. But this would show 829 different employees would be receiving these costs. And this is essentially the cost to get employees up to a market competitive position while also respecting the internal equity essentially of the system that you have in place. So we are recommending for increases. As I said, in July of 2022 would be when most employees would receive that increase. There are some employees that essentially, some departments that may treat this a little bit differently. I'll let the compensation committee address that further if they'd like. But again, by July of 2022 would be our recommendation. That would be the cost, the annual cost for making this increase here. And then again, as mentioned, some departments would be able to treat that a little bit differently. One thing I will mention too about these recommendations is we have provided these recommendations to the compensation committee, and we have run through these recommendations with a second set of department head meetings and union meetings after we came back with recommendations. So these recommendations for each individual department, the department heads have reviewed those, provided feedback, and essentially given us some areas where they said, hey, we'd like you to take a look at this again. We've got a question of this area. And so as we move forward, that's some of the additional information that I wanted to share here. The recommendations were individually reviewed by each department. Again, typically the department head or sometimes a deputy or someone else would attend. And they did raise some concerns. They had some questions. They said, hey, when you look at this department, we'd like you to take another look at this position. We did review each of those concerns that were brought up. Sometimes we found the concerns had merit. We said, yes, based on the way you structure your department internally, we'd like to make a change to that versus what we saw in the market. And sometimes we said, look, we just don't have the justification to do that based on the data we collected. And so each of those received an individual response, again, going through the compensation committee. Bullet number 3 there, you'll see some of the different factors that were reviewed after the department meetings. Were internal equity concerns where a department would say, hey, even though these positions might not appear to be related, we have used them in a way that would sort of lead towards an internal promotion in the past. It would create some issues for our department if we adjust that. That was some of the concerns that were brought up. Market changes since the survey. There were a few examples where departments would bring up, say, hey, I know what you collected in the survey, and that was accurate at the time, but we've had some new development since then. So in this economy, in this market that we're in right now, I don't think anyone will be surprised to hear that there has been a lot of movement in the year of 2021. And even recently, as we've been working on the solution, there have been some changes announced. So we always want to keep that in mind as we make these recommendations, and we have done our best to do that as well, even after that market survey results were brought in. We had a couple departments asking about longevity pay, and so that was something that we did have discussions with the county for those employees who might be capped at step 20. They may be at the top of the range, unable to receive an adjustment based on a step increase. And so we did have some conversations about longevity pay and then placement methodology for various groups of employees. So again, we had some discussions on where to place employees, how to place employees, and then would there be differences for those few employees who essentially, how do we place those not on a step plan? For example, what did we do for the district attorney as well as directors? So we did have conversations relating to each of those different factors as well. So that's the information that I wanted to share today. Basically a high level summary of what we did. Again, more detailed information has been shared with the compensation committee, but at this point, I'll sort of either turn it back over to Angela, but also open it up if there are any questions or anything else anybody would like me to address a little bit further. I'd be happy to do so as well.
We start our recommendations, commissioners.
Questions by the commissioners of Mark Holcomb?
No.
All right. Are there any questions from the public of Mark Holcomb? All right. Seeing none. Before we get to the recommendations, Mark, when you had the $5 million, was that calculated on a full year or was that calculated as of July 1?
That would be the 12-month cost for employees. So starting July 1, it would be from July 1, 2022 to July 1, 2023. So it would include an annual 12-month cost.
Okay. And then during our budgetary process, we set aside $2.5 million for the implementation of the wage compensation. And then, Betty, we also set aside additional funds that would be excess rather than putting them back into the general fund.
Well, yes. First of all, let me start out by saying the amounts of that he is showing, the cost that he showed of $5 million, a little over $5 million, that is for, as he said, a 12-month period, but that does not include benefits that we have to pay on those wages. For an average employee, those benefits are 20.16%. For FOP, they are 33.25%. So you've got to add those benefits on there to find the real true cost to the county. Yes, we did set 2.5%, 2.5 million aside for the 2022 budget. So that is what we will use primarily to fund this. And we are setting any additional money aside for that we have in 2021 for future pay increases. Now that does not, that will go, it will just be what I want to say, a restriction to the reserves. That will not go to the 2022 budget. So we still have to work within the state budget rules and requirements and all that. So even though we're setting that money aside in the reserves, that will not necessarily add to any budgetary items for 2022.
Questions for Betty? Angela, where do we go from here?
Well, first we want to thank Mark Holcomb and Evergreen for their work on this, as well as the Wage Study Committee, which included Betty and Jim and Brian Cole and Michael Augustine. What we do next is we would ask the commission to accept the committee's proposed recommendation for the Evergreen study, with the implementation for the majority of departments taking place in July of 2022. It would be pay period 15, which begins on 7/3 and would be paid on 7/23. The committee has also identified positions with critical staffing shortages. They include the DOC, corrections specialists, solid waste drivers and collectors, the sheriff's dispatch, the call takers and the dispatchers, and the public works road and bridge 1 positions. Implementations for those positions with critical shortages at the DOC, Solid Waste, Sheriff's Dispatch, and Public Works would take place pay period 3, which would be January 15th with a pay date of January 4th. We would also, if you accept this study, would like to appoint Michael Augustine, the Deputy Director of Human Resources, as a point of contact for any wage study questions, and Mike is here today. We'd be happy as a committee to answer any questions you might have over the study.
So if I can get the motion put together correctly as you've requested, it would be to adopt or to accept and adopt the Evergreen recommendations, that we would have the, working with the Wage Study Committee, the implementation for employees beginning on July 1, critical employees beginning on January the 4th, and Mike Augustine as the point of contact for the implementation.
Just for clarification, it would not be January 1st, July 1st, it would be July 3rd
July 3rd.
for them, and it would be January 15th.
January 15th and July the 3rd.
Yes.
Questions by the commissioners? Might also note that this is not making a direction to the directors or the department heads or the elected officials. That would be by separate resolution at a later time.
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. I'll make that motion then to so adopt as requested. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion to adopt by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
There was an item added. I'm not sure if it made it to your agenda. I'm sorry, Ms. Beck, but there was an item added yesterday late. This was an...
Department of Corrections.
Yes.
Okay, item G, Department of Corrections, number 1, consider approval of request to pay $68,000 to Samco for the emergency repair of a sewer line in the Adult Detention Center, and approval to utilize the contingency fund for the purchase.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eve Kendall, Department of Corrections. I'm here before you to request the use of contingency funds for an emergency repair/purchase. Monday morning, I came into a not-so-pleasant situation. It took us all day to remedy that situation. We ended up having to bring in and snake and camera the sewer line, and we found, we corrected the clog, but we also found some unpleasant pipe damage and whatnot due to some wear and tear and age. It is the original pipe from when the building was constructed. Part of the issue and why the cost is so much is because the repair is inside our building, so they have to saw into the concrete, tile and concrete, and then dig down about 10 feet, creating a trench, and then replacing the pipe and then refilling and repairing the hole that they created. We are also in contact with Mr. Morgan from the clerk's office in case we can create a insurance claim on this. So we are working closely with him also. The bid is a not to exceed bid because it was a quick response to my need for some information. So it will not exceed $68,800, and more than likely it'll be under, but I can't promise you. That is not me, sir.
Question I do have, and this may be for you as well as Nelda, as well as Betty, knowing that we do have some contingency funds left at the end of the year, would it be beneficial for Shawnee County to have a Samco or another company come in and snake the entire plumbing for the jail? Because this is not the first time that we've had issues with the original plumbing of 1988 that is failing unexpectedly, and at least then we would know where to make future plans. And I don't know what that cost would be, or if if the Department of Corrections has done that in the past.
Sir, we have done that I can't say we've done the whole sewer system, but we do snake various areas. I don't know that snaking would be the answer. It would be more of a camera going
And
through.
if I said snake, I meant camera, but to have the entire facility cameraed to identify the weakness areas.
Yeah,
Betty Griner, Director of Administrative Services. I would say the contingency that we have left after the things that you have already approved today, there is about $100,000 that will be left in contingency for this year. So we would be limited in how much we have in funds. So I don't have any idea how much it costs to have something snaked, but that
Or
would be.
to camera.
Or a camera, yeah. But that would be the limitation we would have on contingency funds.
I can't imagine it be anywhere near $100,000.
No, I meant.
Okay.
Well, but that is including, that's before we have this 68.8 that we have to have for this request.
So we would have we would have $32,000 roughly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nell, did you know what it would cost to have a camera scope done of the entire facility?
I do not know the cost. What the camera scope will provide you is some information. I mean, the cameras aren't what you would think of as far as getting a good look at something. They will camera down and they will share you the video back with you once it's done. Would it be worth the effort if you have had issues in the past like this? It might be worth it, but I do not know the cost.
Yeah. It was just a thought, and as again, I know that we've had failing areas with the plumbing and the sewer lines with a building that dates back to 1988 or 87. So, and maybe that is a project that we hold for another day. So, any other questions?
No.
I'll make a motion then to approve the use of the contingency funds for the emergency repair.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflected, it passes 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Our next item.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
This is an opportunity for any department head or member of the public to address the commission on any item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tammy Tuff, Deputy Treasurer. I just want to remind the public today is the last business day of the year for the Treasurer's offices, including motor vehicle, to be open. We will still be in the office tomorrow, but not open to the public for year-end. And that's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. Nelson Castile, Operations Chief for the EOC. I'm sorry that we could not give you a white Christmas this year, but apparently it's been decided that we need to have a white ending of the year and a beginning of the year. Not sure how I feel about that, but we've got a possibility of accumulations of 4 to 6 inches right now, to be 4-6 inches. And Weather Service and those folks are going to be giving us some more information. We're on a winter storm watch starting at midnight Saturday morning, and that will continue at least till midnight on Sunday. They issue those watches 36 to 48 hours out when they notice that there's going to be significant travel impacts, hazardous conditions out there, and so forth. And that was the good news, Commissioners. The bad news is that since we've had such a wonderful fall here, where some of us ran around in short sleeves just last week, we could see wind chills as low as negative 25 degrees coming up there on Sunday and through Sunday. So want folks to be aware of that if they're out engaging in those things that they engage in on the holidays, travel and other things. Have a plan of action. Make sure that you're planning out where you go. The KDOT, Kansas Department of Transportation, has a really nice site there called candrive.org. That's KANDRIVE.org. Gives you all the travel conditions of the federal and state highway systems here in Kansas. And be sure to make sure you've got your disaster kit with you if you're going to travel. Make sure that you're also paying attention to some reputable sources to get your information about what's going on, and we'll continue to provide updates throughout the weekend as things come about. And as with a lot of these events, especially the first event of the year, we could see changes in where the low pressure is at, which could make a significant difference in where the snowfall occurs. But right now, the best news, well, not the best news, the most accurate news is that it will probably start with a nice wintry mix here on New Year's Eve, and then proceed to put a lot of snow down out there. So if you have any questions for me, I'll stand here to answer them.
Any questions for Nelson? Thank you.
Thank you, and have a good holiday, Commissioners.
Good morning, Commissioner. Bill Sutton, Shawnee County Solid Waste. Want to wish everybody a happy and safe New Year's. That being said, in observance of the county holiday on Monday, we are closed on Monday, so we will be adjusting everything to the right by one day. So Monday customers will be picked up on Tuesday. Wednesday will be our double day with our Tuesday and Wednesday customers. And I'd like to remind everybody that if they go to the solid waste page, and ignore that mortuary photo over there on the right side, they can sign up for a free text reminder there at the Recycle Coach. And basically just click there, enter your address, and then set your reminder, and you can get a free email, text, or even a phone call message for your collection service. It's a free service, and it works very well, and that way people will not be missing their pickups on these crazy holiday weeks. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Get over there. There we go.
Any other administrative communications this morning? Kurt, I'm going to pick on you for just a moment. If you would kind of outline for us how Shawnee County Public Works responds to snow and other wintry mix.
Courtney House, Director of Public Works. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Starting yesterday, we started brine treating bridge decks, and we had been brine pre-treating. We call it pre-treating. It's with brine. Some of our more heavily traveled roads, but then, as Nelson talked about, we could have some significant winds. And so we quit brining. We don't want snow to stick to the roadway. We want the wind to blow it off into the ditches. So we've quit brining roadways. It was still the right thing to do to brine the bridge decks because they freeze real quick. So all of our equipment is in good shape. It's running, so we're ready to rock and roll.
All right. Any questions for Kurt? All right. Thank you. Any other administrative communications this morning? Commissioner Mays?
Happy New Year.
All right. There is no meeting on Monday, the 3rd, so we would be returning then on the 7th, I believe. Seeing the 6th. Thank you. Commissioner Rippon, anything?
Nothing to report.
All right. Having nothing else, Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 6, executive session.
There is no need for an executive session. We are adjourned. See you back all on the 6th.